Welcome to the Company Move podcast, where we explore what life outside of the film and television industry could look like by talking to folks who have made the leap. I'm your host, Rennie Pollock, a union second assistant camera person currently living and working in Chicago, Illinois. I'll be learning and growing along with you, so let's go. Company's on the move. Kyle Glenn is a musician and filmmaker who believes in the unequivocal power of story to connect people to themselves and each other. He received his BFA in digital media production from the Art Institute of Portland in 2008 and currently works as a freelance video instructor and producer, crafting socially responsible stories and teaching digital storytelling. Kyle has spent countless hours on productions ranging from on-the-fly reality shows to full-scale theatrical films and in a variety of roles, mainly as an AD and PA. He worked on productions such as Grimm, Portlandia, Leverage, Little People, Big World, and Gone. When not building community through story, Kyle likes to spend his time in nature, cooking with friends, and creating moments of mindfulness in pursuit of a slow culture. Kyle is a prolific singer-songwriter. You can see him perform his original music several nights a month around the Pacific Northwest, and you can hear him anytime on Spotify and learn about his tours, merch, and such at kyleglenmusic.com. He's working on his first full-length album coming out in September 2024, and we will put all the links to everything that I just said in the show notes. But without further ado, welcome to the Company Move podcast, Kyle Glenn.
Hey, Rennie.
Hi. How are you, friend?
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you, too.
It's wild. It feels like it's been, well, I mean, it has been a minute since we've seen each other, but since we talked too.
Yeah. Kyle, for a backstory, is like one of my very best friends. We worked together on, what was that movie called? Cabin in the Woods? Not the Joss Whedon Cabin in the Woods.
No, the lesser known. Now I think it's called Through the Woods.
Oh, you're correct. Yes. So I found it on Craigslist. I was a unpaid PA and Kyle was a camera assistant. And just became like best buds. We were pretty much around each other all the time. People were like, "Are you guys dating?" Like, no, he's just like my brother.
Yeah, I don't remember. In my mind, it feels like it was 6 months that we were just like saw each other every day. In reality, I think it was like 2 or 3. But yeah, that was a good spring and summer hanging out around Portland.
All right. So Kyle, we just talked a little bit about how we met. Can you tell me what was your job in the film industry, how you got into it, and what your experience was?
Yeah, in 4th grade, I met this kid.
You're going way back.
Yeah, I'll go way back. I met this kid named Austin Hillebrand. He transferred into our school. We became really good friends, and he had this vision of making movies, and I kind of really got caught up in that possibility for ourselves. And so we spent a lot of our youth kind of running around filming knockoffs of Lord of the Rings, and we thought it was completely original IP, but of course we were influenced by Star Wars and all this stuff we were watching, Indiana Jones, and he would do a lot of like stop motion animations with his toys and stuff. And so kind of geared my entire middle school, high school leaning towards like how to get to making movies, wanting to make fictional feature films, like the stuff we grew up with. And so there wasn't a lot of classes geared towards that as we were growing up, because this was, I was in middle school in 98 to 2001 or something like that. And so it was still kind of like inaccessible to a certain extent. There was definitely like home video cameras, but the schools didn't have as much access to technology as we do today.
Right.
And, but, so I did a lot of theater and stuff like that. And then when I was looking at schools, it was kind of an interesting time for education in film, because this was about 2005, 2004 was when I graduated high school. So you had the big ones down in LA, you had USC, UCLA, all these things. And like, honestly, I was like, that sounds exhausting. And the amount of like attrition there is from those funnels of like schooling for undergrad, like you got to do your undergrad and then only X percentage of that makes it into the film program or whatever. I was like, I'm probably not in that.
And but it's so expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's out of state and it's so super expensive. So I looked around and eventually we went to the Art Institute of Portland, which I wasn't super stoked on because they ran ads during Matlock, during midday television, on TV. Is like, cool. But we went there, we checked it out, and it was like one of the only schools at the time where you could get your hands on a camera in the first term. So I went to school for 3 years, year round, worked really hard. AI kind of sucked and they don't exist anymore. And in fact,
AI meaning the Art Institute,
Art
not
Institutes.
AI. Yeah,
Oh yeah, sorry.
that's okay.
Weird. I was just in a group chat earlier about like one AI is out and the other one's coming in.
Right,
A bunch of people that I know our federal loans are being wiped from the Art Institute of Portland, et cetera. This isn't the Art Institute of Chicago.
right, right.
It was very much a trade school, and it was kind of cool because, we had access to equipment, and I had a really strong cohort that we kind of gathered and had a lot of solidarity, and we showed up for each other, and we showed up every day. And my Bachelor of Fine Arts classes kind of suffered a bit, but I made it through with all right grades and graduated. It was cool because from that, I got an opportunity to intern for a production company that also kind of took advantage of people, but gave us a lot of opportunity for, reasonable pay for a graduate right out of film school. And I also met a lot of other grads that were coming out of community colleges at the time that also had like these pretty awesome film programs. It was just, I think, kind of a big change for the industry in that moment, especially in Portland. And Portland was dumping a lot of money into incentives. Oregon was dumping money into incentives. And so as I graduated, we had Grimm starting to come up. Leverage, I think, was already here. My friends were starting to get work on that. And so I worked at the production company for a couple of years. It was called Funnel Box, and it's still around. I'm still doing great work in Portland. And I don't know anything about what they're hiring and their employee stuff is like now. This was a long time ago. Once again, strong group of people that were young and hungry and showed up and got a lot of opportunities, and very grateful to Rob Crocker, who was the boss back then, that let us screw around with a Red One when it was the most expensive camera out there and like shoot stupid stock videos. And yeah, it was pretty wild, the stuff we got away with. But I still wanted to be involved in kind of the features and the television world. And so I guess there's a number of, sorry, this is long-winded.
It's okay.
When I graduated as well, as I was leaving, I started a production company with 3 other folks from AI. And so we were called Quarter Orange. So I was working at Funnel Box kind of full-time. Also had Quarter Orange, where we were making our own content for Stand for Children Oregon, which was a nonprofit that awards scholarships to youth around the state, and for OMSI, the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. Our big break right out of school was doing 3 tequila commercials, which is kind of funny for Portland. It was the only time I've used sex to sell anything.
Say more.
Yeah, it's kind of a very sexy Fiona Apple criminal snapshot photo. The end of it is like they go up in an elevator. There's a little like sigh from a woman. There's like grabbing the bed sheets.
Tequila equals sex is basically
what you
said. Got it.
So we did that, and then our big thing that we did before we dissolved the company was we made it was supposed to be a feature, but we made a 45-minute Sasquatch horror film called
Love that film.
Sasquatch.
Evidence of Sasquatch.
Evidence of the Sasquatch. It is on YouTube. You can find it. It's hard to find because it's a great and terrible name. Because if you search for evidence of the Sasquatch, you just get
people trying to find the Sasquatch. Yeah. Maybe we can find it and link it in the show notes so that folks can take a watch. It's very Blair Witchy fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actor operated cameras. And that was what we all wanted to do. We graduated in 2008. That was a tough time. Portland is a town, especially as agencies, as a production company. Portland is full of agencies because of Nike and Wyden and Kennedy and kind of and Adidas and all of the like spill out from there. The ripple effect of that.
Intel.
So
yeah.
So it's just hard to be a small independent boutique production company, especially as you're young and really figuring out. I mean, we all go through the artist cycle of understanding our value, trying to provide, high production value for low cost, not realizing you're undercutting the professionals that have been there for 20 years. And but that's the experience, I think. I think that's just a universal experience of creatives and artists, and understanding that you are worth more than what you're charging and stuff like that. But we just found it was really difficult, and 2 of our partners were married to each other. So the company we just dissolved it, and then comes the next chapter. At the same time as well, I started doing less at Funnel Box, kind of left my full-time job there, and I started doing more freelance production. That's where I got into PAing. I was like a day player a lot, and it was never a staff PA on any like shows, but I would day play on Grimm and Leverage and get to work like 2 or 3 days a week, usually doing that, and then get to do my Quarter Orange stuff. So it was nice and flexible. and really got to see how those big sets work. Luckily at AI, we got to experience a little bit of every part of the job, and we ran our productions pretty close to how they run professionally. So it was a kind of an easy entrance, and it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of a lot of late nights in Portland in Grimm. I'm sure other people will talk about this, but like Grimm takes place at night in the dark, in wet, rainy Portland. That's what they want, and
I
so
think season one's transportation crew shirt was Grim exterior night rain.
yeah, yeah,
Like every time I worked on that show, it was a night shoot in really treacherous conditions.
yeah. Carhartt made a lot of money on their plastic coveralls during the Grimm
Sure did.
season.
Some Neos, everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Were you attracted to set life and staying and moving up into the AD world, or were you always just kind of using it as a vehicle to create your own?
I was interested in that for sure. I
Mhm.
explored it. I talked to Bruce, who is the UPM, I think. I don't remember his last name. Bruce Wayne.
It'll come to me.
Yeah. On Grimm, and because I did try to get like the stage PA role at one point, and talked to him a little bit about like he went through the DGA assistant directors program. So I considered that possibility for a while, and then I also thought about. I mean, I did do some ADing thanks to Rennie. I worked two shows. We did Nightscape together,
Hmm.
where Rennie was the second AD and I was the second. And then we did, oh, well, no, I don't remember how I got on Wilderness of James.
Oh, I was the second AD on that.
You were, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I
cool.
I spent a long time thinking I was going on the DGA track. I haven't really introduced myself in that way yet. I'm now a camera
Oh,
assistant
right.
full time,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was an AD for a while.
Yeah.
And Kyle and I worked together a bunch as PAs, and then on non-union stuff, I would try to bring him on just because you're a great communicator and also fun to be around, which is really important if you're going to be on set together for 15 hours a day, which is what we did a lot.
Yeah. And at the time, I enjoyed the rigor. I think there's a bonding, trauma bonding.
So much.
Yeah. The solidarity of it, this idea of we're all doing this hard thing together, working these crazy hours. And honestly, the other side of that too, they're like work hard, party hard, working production is this kind of like hermetic, especially working on a show, like a film or whatever, is this hermetic thing where you are this special thing outside of space and time that nobody can touch and the law can't touch. And, like,
You can cross the street with immunity
yeah.
as
You
long
can
as you
drive
have
as
your
fast as
vest
you
on.
want, you know,
Yeah.
drive as fast as you want because you got to get the lunch order in, or whatever. I remember driving crazy on Little People Big World sometimes just because, you like had it's a reality show that we shot out in North Plains that I got to work on. So yeah, I was definitely considering, I wanted to direct, I thought, feature films, but coming out of school, I kind of got pigeonholed for better or for worse into the assistant directing role. And I was
Mhm.
really into that too, because I'm a Virgo cusp, like I love organizing information and I'm a communicator. I'm also a Leo, so I like being the center probably of knowing what's going on and delegating.
I love that we're getting into astrology right now. It helps. I mean, it helps to know.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's been cool to like help me give me some guideposts in my life.
so tell me when you started thinking about exiting the industry, like leaving set life behind. Did you have an idea in mind? Did something come along that sparked your interest or enticed you or made you realize that there was a life outside of working those types of hours?
There are a few things that happened. One is we were 1 week into production on a show and I got a DUI. We had a few days of working together, then we had this barbecue, and then we found out we didn't have to work the next day. So the barbecue kind of turned into a little bit of a party. I had too much to drink and I was driving home and I got pulled over and I got a DUI. And so that was just kind of a big wake up call. I had been driving the 40-foot. This was a non-union gig, so I was a second AD driving the 40-foot RV, and you still get to keep your license for a few months after you get a DUI because your life can't change immediately. But I told the transportation locations manager and the producer like we should hand over that responsibility. And luckily, I was able to finish the show and still drive and stuff. But pretty much right when that show wrapped up, I didn't have my license anymore, which made it, that makes it difficult to engage with films that are happening all over the Portland metro area. How are you going to get to stuff? Had a couple gigs, I could bus to and stuff like that. So, that's just kind of like was one thing. Part of that too is I had to you go to group therapy, which is my first experience with therapy ever. And a therapist really kind of introduced me to mindfulness because I would go on these long walks and it's like, well, what are you thinking about? I was like, or I would just be like, realize I would go on these long walks and be thinking, but not really be aware of what I was thinking and really wouldn't really know what I was thinking about. And so those kind of things in conjunction with my old business partners, Eli and Selena. Eli got a job at Stanford in Palo Alto as a media, like a video producer. And so they moved down to the Bay Area. And so I went to visit them for New Year's, and there's this possibility opened up of joining them down there. And I think I was ready for a change in general, just like time to get out of Portland, where I was born and raised and went to college and started my career. So I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do down there, but I just kind of went for it. So I think there's a part of exhaustion and maybe not necessarily having that kind of like direction, like knowing where I was going, kind of moving in this DGA direction, but also like if you don't do the DGA AD track, that's 600 days. Let's take like 4 years, especially day playing. But even if you're on a union, I don't know, it's just so many hoops to jump through, which I get, I understand because.
Well, that's what stopped me. It was putting together a book and
Yeah.
really keeping track of 600 days is wild. It's wild.
Yeah. It's kind of.
I appreciate the people who did the work to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked Devin Linforth. It took him, several years to finally just put himself in a room and put all of his book together to get it done. So, yeah.
And if I had stayed in the industry, I probably would not have. I mean, maybe I would have gone to AD, but I feel like I would have gone to like set or props or something. Um, that seems a lot more fun. Or even running sound. I can be a curmudgeon sometimes. I like the.
Love to our sound brothers and sisters and folk
Yeah,
out there.
sorry,
But
no, yeah,
you guys hear
all
everything,
love.
so you get frustrated.
I always appreciate how much of an island they can be, kind of untouched by certain. They're just like, you've got a 3-person team and you just do your thing and you have to be willing to like stop stuff. I really respect their personality types because they have a lot to contend with and a lot of stuff riding on their shoulders if it goes wrong. So it's a stressful situation. So I could have seen myself there, or also art, or maybe even the GE guys on Leverage really were the electric guys were trying to recruit me. But yeah, I just needed a change. And I think, having that really hard stop on drinking really kind of also put a lot into perspective of just like, oh, what does this look like? This pattern look like down the road, down the years, and these hard hours. And so I moved down to the Bay, not sure what I was going to do. If I was going to try to find similar work, I had a lot of that experience with like Funnelbox too, of doing the like small commercial stuff, and the Bay is not necessarily known, even less so, I mean, than Portland at the time for, they could probably have as much shooting down there as Portland, maybe,
Mhm.
So I applied to jobs and I got a job at a chiropractic college. Storyteller creative support was my official title, but it was doing video initially. By the end of it, I was doing less video and more social media and like and emails and stuff like that, photography. That was the first time I had a salary and I had regular hours, and I started playing music again, which I had put to bed pretty much during college. So that was kind of like the first awakening.
That's awesome. I want to go back a little bit because you touched on a subject that I'm glad came up organically and something that I definitely, as we're building community with this podcast, want to be able to talk about and maybe bring on some more experts. But the mental health aspect, I love that it came up because I think that it's definitely something that since the pandemic has been coming up more in the union talks. And I think there's less stigma around talking about mental health. And I think that there's a certain kind of person that's attracted to this kind of lifestyle. It's it's hard to be able to take care of your mental health when you are working really unpredictable long hours. I still struggle.
Yeah.
I too have found meditation has really helped ground me. Um, and then just this current period that we're in of slowdown of work after the strikes. It's just so important uh, for folks to find a proper therapist or meditation or just some sort of practice. Can you speak more to how how that helped you make the decision?
Yeah. Well, a few things that come to mind is like it's hard to have a routine on production. I know it's easier on some studio stuff in LA. I remember our Keith talking about working a sitcom in LA and your days get shorter as the week goes on. But
Mm,
up here in Portland, I still have friends. They start the week at 5 a.m. call time and they end the week at 5 p.m. call time. And
mhm.
then they have a day and a half to turn around till it's another 5, 6 a.m. I mean, routine has been something that I've learned is really helpful for me for my mental health. Whether I can stick with it or not is another thing, but I do recognize like when I can wake up and I can have my coffee and journal and meditate and go for a walk before I have to start my day, it's great. Um, and I feel like that's probably true of a lot of people. I mean, we all know regular sleeping patterns, right? Like uninterrupted sleep, all that stuff is good for you and kind of in direct conflict to a lot of production. And I also want to say that I also recognize that this is, for a long time, I thought it was pretty specific to production. But as I've grown older and experienced talking to more people or just like looking at more lifestyles, like this is like an American epidemic, and I'm sure it is in other places in the world too. But anytime we're going to prioritize the bottom line over people's health, like you've got people working late hours, wherever they are. And you've got these addictive cult-like workspaces where you enjoy the trauma of it, right? Because you can't not. If you don't, then it's just hell, right?
Right.
If you can't justify or rationalize some kind of like that we're in this together and we're doing the hard work
We're
for,
family.
like, yeah, we're family, and then what are you doing? you know. So yeah, I'm just like there's so many people doing so much hard work out there, and burning out. I mean, shit, our healthcare industry, our teachers,
Nonprofit
yeah,
spaces.
nonprofit, and then
Yeah.
even like tech coder, engineers, and then even people on Wall Street or people even doing Bitcoin or whatever, they're fucking on
Hmm.
Chinatown, like making these sales and two, I think the other part of the well-being is the feast and famine aspect of it, right? And in my life, that's all I can speak to, but I know how much the noise floor is heightened when funds are low and you don't know where the next job is coming in. So even when you're not working, and I have friends that are union friends, that are still stressed out every time a job ends.
Yeah.
They're not sure where the next job is coming. And so then you've got that constant, even when you're done, when you're off a job and you're able to find a routine again or whatever it is, you still got this like nagging thing of like, am I going to be able to make my hours this year to keep my health care,
Hmm.
pay the mortgage, all the things that like the good pay, hopefully good pay. I'm not sure. I'm not really in it, but like the idea is that like a lot of, you give a lot of your life and you make a decent, a good paycheck, but also like with that paycheck comes more things that you need to continue to pay for when
Right.
the paychecks aren't coming in.
Right. That's what
Oh,
I'm in now. I mean, I'm a union camera assistant. I had a show from late January to early April, and I'm in a new market. I moved to Chicago, so I'm newer. But I've made some good connections, and I've worked a total of 4 days on set since that show wrapped, and it is mid June and end of June right now. So I have 11 years of experience in camera department as a union camera assistant, and I'm still stressing,
Hmm.
you know? So this also gave me the space to create this podcast to be able to talk to people like you about how you got out.
Right.
And maybe also give some hope to folks who are in that same boat of like, I just want a salary and a life and to not worry about where the next paycheck is coming from.
Like the golden handcuffs are real, especially in this industry. And so that was a long way to get back to your meditation, mindfulness, which is just
Mm.
or to kind of lay some more just of like what I see out there and what's been my experience. But one of the big things I think is, of practices, and all practices are kind of the same thing. Whether you're writing 3 pages a day, doing breath work, or meditating for 20 minutes, like all three of those things are the same thing. So I would say one thing is like, don't feel pressure to do all of those things, even running, right? Do one of
Hmm.
the, any one of those things for any length of time is the same practice. As long as you're bringing kind of mindfulness into it, which is just the ability to be in the present moment, even just looking around. And like, I think the biggest thing for me in regulating my system I've learned over the past couple of years is somatic kind of practice of just like take a second and notice all five senses and just and breathe and then keep going. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but I recommend everybody try to like find a little tool, find a little something, and whatever works for you. Again, I've done morning routines where I've done all five. I'm like writing, journaling, meditating, breathing, exercising, and like at the end of the day, all five of those things are the same path to this place.
Right, right. I love that. I love what I talked about in your intro, the like creating moments of mindfulness in pursuit of a slow culture. Like slow culture is such a, I've never heard it said that way before, but it's a really beautiful sentiment. And I know I'm striving for a slower lifestyle, a slower culture. Can you say more about that? And did that get you into more songwriting and performing?
Yeah, I think, with the slow culture, I think came from that place of mindfulness too. And that conversation I had with that therapist when I first had it, which was like I had felt this need to be an extrovert and to be like you see the people that are extroverted that are like, especially in like the Portland film scene or whatever, and like you got to know everybody and like
Mhm.
network and stuff. And so alcohol makes that easier for me. But did it actually? There's the question. Probably not. What they said was this thing that was like, well, that's not everybody, and you don't need to be that person, and you are who you are, and you seem to be really good one-on-one. So like lean into that. Be the one-on-one person. You don't need to be the social butterfly. And so that I think starts, uh, a fork in the road of looking at my life. And so when you have a moment where you can slow down, like getting a DUI, like, I don't know, or COVID, right? Like these things where a lot of people
Mhm.
had some time to slow down and take stock in a different way. Those are opportunities to like lean into the slow moments and recognize that like even in the slowness, so much can get done. So the slow culture, what's been cool is like I'll just jump there. But in 2019, I moved back to Portland from the Bay Area and I got a job in Hood River, which is about an hour east, working for a production company called Story Gorge. And it was just me and the owner, Sean O'Connor, who I still work with today. And I'm a contractor now, but I joined as an employee because I wasn't really interested in contracting. I'd been contracting the 2.5 previous years after I left the chiropractic college. I worked for a chiropractic practice just doing storytelling. And that's where a lot of my connection to storytelling as a healing tool and as a connective tool really came into focus. And where I started to really want to exit on the whole. Like in 2019, my plan was to not do video anymore. I wanted to teach digital storytelling was what I was really attracted to. And I'd taken some classes down in the Bay, audited some classes that kind of gave me those tools. At the same time, video is what I know, what I've been doing for a decade. It's really hard to leave it, right? It's like it's
Right,
the thing I can do for the most amount of money and the least amount of work.
right.
No, it's the problems I know how to solve the fastest. Because I've been doing it for 15 years. And so long story short, Story Gorge is a company that is based in telling human-centered stories as well as it was built on teaching, like as mostly in schools, but we also started doing professional development, but like mobile documentary filmmaking and Lego stop motion and like artist residencies in schools and stuff like that. So it like kind of matched a lot of my dad actually had heard this dude Sean on the radio and had heard me talking about wanting to teach this stuff. And he's like, well, you should reach out to this guy. And so when I moved back, I did, and I met up with him, and I got hired as the first employee to teach and do video. But what I really got to do too was create the culture. Sean comes from an outdoor photography background, outdoor sports, into now he's a photographer, into now I make videos. And with that comes still a little bit of this glamorization of the long day, of the hard work, of the, civil twilight, civil dawn, like, golden hour. We got to get there. We're there at sunrise. We're there at sunset. And I appreciate that too from an aesthetic sense. Absolutely. But also I got to, because it was just two of us, kind of bring in my years of what I want out of a day. And it's like, we don't like,
you can schedule those on 2 different days.
yeah, like we can do things differently, and I really got to start playing around. And I think that kind of started at the chiropractic college too, where people don't know. They don't know what it's like, and sure, it's fun to like have those hard days where you like still schedule everything in and you put the puzzle together and it all flows, and that feels great. But it's also like really nice to like, well, let's just give ourselves the time we need and not kill ourselves for this thing. That really, and this is like, I still love cinema, and actually I've started watching some movies again recently that gave me faith in cinema again. Like I watched all the Marvel movies and then I got like sick of those, and I watched this movie called In Fabric, which is like this British horror film. And I was like, oh, cinema. Yes, this is still a powerful medium that I still love deeply. However, I do also think that like my brothers and sisters are, and and I don't know, is there a neutral term for brothers and sisters? My siblings
Kin.
and
Kin.
my kin and
Yeah.
film industry are kind of like killing themselves for shit that really
Yep.
often doesn't do us
Yep.
anything any doesn't do us as a whole much better. Aside,
Right.
entertainment is necessary and important, and distraction, I think, and fantasy and imagination and creativity, but also like I don't, at the expense of my friends' lively lives, and their
Right.
health and mental well-being. I don't think so. I don't. I would rather have dinner with you,
Right.
Rennie, than
Let's grab a
like,
coffee.
yeah, like I'd rather see you more during. I'd rather be able to like call you up on a Tuesday and go to lunch than like
Right.
be working on the next Marvel movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say the show that I just worked on in January to April renewed my faith in filmmaking and being on a set that's positive and like welcoming and also understanding of people's lives. And then I immediately worked on a commercial after, or like the promos for it afterwards. I was like, oh, there it is. Like there's the abuse. There's the, you know, we don't really matter. They just need to get the thing.
Yeah,
Um, so there are productions out there, but it's few and far between, and it's becoming harder and harder to sustain that type of lifestyle.
yeah. We acknowledge this in the intro in my bio is that like I'm still my main source of income is still video work,
Hmm.
just not in the Hollywood system. Um, I work in a pretty much agency. I'm a freelancer now, and I just moved back to Portland from Hood River. But so it's like I'm not totally out of like the video scene, and I still want to. That was my goal in 2019. In 2022, I burned out after COVID. We luckily, I don't know, maybe luckily, were able to maintain during COVID. We switched from like hourly to a salary because we knew we had like some chunks of contracts come through, mostly in teaching, that kept me going, kept us both sustained. However, I didn't really get that opportunity of a pause to like pause and reflect and make a shift. So I kind of burnt out in 2022 and left that full-time position um, to hit the road again. In 2016, I did it as well, which Ronnie joined me for part of that trip. I was down in LA, and then we went to the Salton Sea.
Yeah.
She helped kick me off into my my first foray of existential travels across the United States.
Playing music. You played at Pappy and Harriet's.
I did. I played it. Yeah,
Yeah.
the open mic. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, that was the first goal was music, and that happened again in 2022. 6 years later, I hit the road again to play music and traveled around the country, and also, but also needed to keep the coffers full, so continued that freelance work. And then I ended up back in Hood River, and then I moved back to Portland in search of more creative music community, especially. Hood River is a beautiful place, but it's very sports oriented
Hmm.
lifestyle first, and I needed some more creative if I want to move music forward. So I'm still freelancing as a producer. But even then, I just had this realization. I've been working on a documentary about regenerative wool ranching. It's feature length with Story Gorge and other partners, Well Traveled Collective. And I was producing that since October or November. And we just had some stuff going down in May, getting ready, trying to ramp up these shoots. And then we were like, okay, it's not as dire. Let's push it a month. Okay, pull the brake off. All right, let's go again, ramping it up. Okay, budgets, like crew. Oh wait, maybe we should. And in this particular shoot, I was kind of like, I think we should still hold on this. And I was kind of pushing back. And eventually we did bail on that too. Throughout this, I'm having this cycle of myself as a producer, like, you know, it's very stressful for me because I'm the one trying to put all of the pieces together to make the puzzle fit so that we can make this efficient, sustainable, get everybody paid what they're worth. We had 2 EPs and a co-directing team. So it was the 5 of us trying to work on this. But like in the shit, I was just like, these aren't the problems I want to solve anymore. One, right? Like that's kind of the main big thing, that big realization for me in that moment. And two, like to that level, I've never done a feature documentary, feature length, and it's just different. And also I've got traditional training that I just feel like I might not be nimble enough for what they need. So all of those things, and and they're like, well, maybe it's because we're not funded. And once we have funding, maybe it'll feel easier for you. And I just had to remember, right? And I think this is like an important part of like we need to remember what we're the truth that we tell ourselves in the moments of stress. And some of it can just be stressful, but I've learned about myself, like I know things in my gut and I can go against them, but there are truths that I know. And like in that calm, when she said that, I was like, yeah, maybe, and kind of let it go for another few weeks until I really followed back up. I was like, hey, you guys should really be looking for another producer because you got to remember those moments and the moments of tension, just like, how do you feel physically? How are you feeling mentally? Is this worth it to you anymore? Is this expense of your resources that you have in this life, whether it is time, I mean, money, energy, worthwhile? And so it's important for us to remember that. And I think also to clock, like you're doing here, examples of possibility outside of it. And that doesn't necessarily look like a parallel jump to another career. Like it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make the same amount of money, but what do you gain in your energy and your other resources? Like, yeah, you might lose some income making a transition, but are you going to gain vitality back, energy back, time back? And then how can you use that time? I'm really excited to hear like how Aaron's doing.
That'll be that's an Easter egg for another episode.
Yeah, I'm excited about that because that's cool. And so my friend Mary, who hired me at the chiropractic college, she was the dean of enrollment, and she eventually studied for her PMP, her project management certificate, and
Mhm.
became a project manager at a tech company. And she made this transition. And during that time, she's like, because she loved chiropractic at the time and still does. But what she was able to do is to take a step into a different realm where she was able to get some breathing room. And so, if you're looking to make a change, look at that, right? It doesn't have
Mhm.
to be forever. And hell, you could even go back. I'm in Portland. I don't have a lot of jobs coming. I'm trying to like generate more jobs. I want to make some workshops. I'm trying to like get that off the ground. I want to teach. That's what I want to do now. That's what I wanted to do. I've been trying to make this transition for 5 years.
Right.
Um, but I've also had fun now making like kind of producing my own stuff, finding my own clients video wise or doing video for other musicians. Like there's still the joy of like making videos there almost and just doing dumb, stupid shit. I filmed my buddy playing a song live in his bathroom. It's
I
like,
saw that.
yeah, it's like that's fun, like that. I'm kind of getting back to the joy of video making in that way. But also, yeah, I want to teach. And so I don't remember where I was going with that, but I think looking for those.
Giving people hope with career pivots.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was saying. I know that like there was a call that went out a couple months ago from some of the ADs in town looking for a new PA pool. It's just like I always kind of admired the like older PAs, who just didn't give a fuck. Mostly because it was not because they had been PAing forever. Like I don't remember what, like Troy on
Oh
Leverage.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was just like Pete's hockey buddy that got a job PAing. I was just like, there's a thing with age and experience, no matter where you come from. Just like, so I've been like, well, maybe I'll, call up some UPMs and see if they need some like day players and get back on set, but just for the hell of it and make some extra money. But the so it doesn't have to be forever. But if you can find that thing in your life where you can jump to it as a little bit of a, not even a life raft. It's like an island, like just somewhere to like get some time back, get some breathing room, get out of the scarcity mindset. Hell, maybe you will even make a little bit more money and with a little less stress in your life.
Hmm.
And then you can just get to a resource position where you can reflect outside of scarcity, outside of the like running around, putting fires out kind of mode. I think, and just be open to what that can look like because it might not be what you think initially. Like, and I think a lot of that comes to the money thing. It might not be
Right.
something where you're making the same amount of money, like, but the other things you get back and the energy and time with your family, time to find new hobbies again. That was what music was. It was amazing. I had money to take a songwriting class and I did that. And then it turned into starting a couple bands and writing music and becoming a big part of my life and the way I want to express in the world. And music is that's another art creative place. It's not an easy way to make a life, and I know at this juncture that like my life is going to be a combination of things to make it, whether it's teaching and playing music and making a video here and there and doing weird photo shoots with my friends for their tree podcast. Like that's fun. I just want to make cool shit with cool people.
Even though you're still doing video, you've worked with kind of corporate video through chiropractic, through like schools, through that kind of stuff. One of my goals with this podcast is to create community, not only with people who have worked in film and do work in film, but to create community with folks that are hiring managers or looking for good candidates. I'll talk from my experience of applying to over, I want to say 250 jobs during the strike, some during the pandemic, that a lot of the feedback I got was that I have an interesting skill set, which in corporate speak translates to, I don't know what to do with you. So I want to be able to bridge that gap of knowledge and understanding, or I guess to be able to find the words to show a hiring manager at a tech company or at a chiropractic college or at another place like that can do with someone who has skills from film.
Right. I think one of the benefits I had is I came from a background where I have done everything.
Mm-hmm.
That makes for a college to hire me a little bit easier because I have a broad understanding of all of the things that it takes to get something done. I have more than I have a pretty deep understanding of most of the major aspects of a production. I think the commitment, right? The hard work ethic, the teamwork, the logistics. I know that every department on set has one of those people that is the logistics person that's interfacing on the scheduling, on hiring, on getting the right equipment on the days needed, on looking at the
Mm-hmm.
budget numbers. But it's also very skilled. So like look at teaching. People want the information that you have. There's so many people out there, like it's not snake oil. So many people selling workshops, right? But also like it's a super low overhead. So like look at like if you are in any kind of market, but I mean especially a market like Portland, teach a 1 day workshop on your department and laud your credentials, charge 250 a head and rent a space. I mean, 250 for 10 people, it's $2,500 with five going to a space rental. You've got $2,000 in your pocket. I mean, you have to do some prep, sure, but like for you to get up there and just share your knowledge. And people are hungry. Teaching is a super low overhead for you, and people are hungry for it.
Dope. Yeah, and I have some friends that are doing that in LA with camera at some camera rental houses. putting together workshops and having full classes. So yeah. I'm not sure how much they're charging or if they're charging. Maybe they should be charging. Charge some money for your skills. Don't just
Yeah,
give them away.
absolutely. Learn your value. It's hard. It's hard.
It is
It's
hard.
especially hard for roles where you are given your value, right? You're told your value through contracts and, through and I think a lot of people I'm sure have went through that during the strikes too, of like, what is my value? How do I relate to this? Do I believe that what they're saying is my value is, even the union is saying is our value is my value, but like, yeah, like how do we, and it's hard to hold that line, but you can always like discount yourself too. It's always good to know how much you feel that you're worth. And then you can always change that situationally depending on how you feel. Like if somebody's like, oh, I can't pay that much. Okay. One of the great things I had somebody tell me, that it was this graphic designer. There was a time where I was kind of contracting and I was like changing my rate based on my skill set in a particular thing, right? Oh,
Mhm.
I'm paid this much to shoot or direct, but this much to edit. Like, oh, I feel more confident editing, so that's $75 an hour, and I'm less confident shooting, so that's $50 an hour. And she's a graphic designer, and she was just like, she just figured out what is her time worth for an hour,
Yeah.
and then you just stick to that, and or don't, right? But at least right? And if you say I'm worth $100 an hour, no matter what I'm doing, like this right now, right?
Mhm.
I'm worth $100 an hour, so this is $100 of my time.
So I owe you $100.
No, because I understand that's my value, and I'm it's gratis, like I'm giving it away. There's musicians that I'm doing stuff for $250 for that would easily cost $1,000, right? Like, but at least I know how much it is, and I know how much I'm discounting it. So I think that's just a powerful thing for all of us to kind of recognize, and whether you hold on to it or not. I go through periods of holding on to that value or like letting it go, because
Mhm.
sometimes it's just like, fuck it, I just want to make cool shit with cool people, and if I can like squeeze out a living, great. But
Totally.
um but it's good to know. Check out ChatGPT and ask it questions. Man, it's like, I don't know, like maybe you come up with some cool ideas about like how to transition, or like what to like I had it help me come up with I'm just a spreadsheet for a budgeting workshops, right? Like how much did this workshop cost, So I don't know if it's the most ecologically sound thing, AI, but it's here at the moment. I don't know, like ask it questions, lean into it, see what ideas it has. Hey, these are my skills. This is like what I feel I'm good at. What should I apply for? Even stuff like that.
Yeah, I think using AI as a tool rather than like as your way to be creative,
Yeah.
but using it as a tool to fuel your creativity is fine.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be here. We have to learn how to work with it.
And
But
generate opportunities and ideas that you wouldn't necessarily be
right.
able to get to on your own.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. What I the core of what you're saying is setting boundaries and knowing your worth,
Yeah.
essentially.
Right.
I've been walking my dog past this like warehouse space that kind of looks like a practice space for bands for, the year and a half that I've had him. And they finally had some label on the window that says Rockwell Studio. So I looked him up and found them on Instagram, found their website, and I just cold emailed them because I really want to get more into band photography, live event photography. I
Oh, yeah.
want to be using my photography skills to create and generate income because that's something I can do regardless of Hollywood.
Yeah.
So I sent them a sample of my work. I sent them um, some photos that I've taken of other bands and just was like, hey, if you're looking for, because they're basically they want to create a vibe. They want to create a place that people want to come and hang out and create. And so I reached out and they reached back and asked me to come by. And so I went by and met with the audio engineer owner of the company, and he immediately was talking like he wasn't trying to get free photography from me. He immediately was talking about, so maybe like, you know, we have these jam sessions on Mondays and Thursdays. If you want to come by, maybe take some photos there, meet some people, make some friends, and then we build you into packages if they're recording. And he talked about how he's minimum $50 an hour, minimum 2 hours, regardless. Like friends know that. And so they know if they're going to come use the studio, they're going to pay $100 because his leaving his house costs at least $100 for the day. And I was just like, I love that. Like, and he's also been encouraging and managing his friends because his friends will be like, hey, I signed this, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, you didn't get paid for this, this, and this. So he's like really a good person that like knows his worth
Mm-hmm.
and also encourages and wants other people to know their worth and their time is valuable and like that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited. He's like, we want to make you part of the crew. It's like, okay, cool. But I think that that's been a struggle in this industry, in this world, especially freelance world. What the hell do I charge for this stuff? Like Selena, I'm working with Selena to create our graphics.
Uh-huh.
She couldn't throw out a number right away. And I was like, I'm not asking you to do this for free. So please tell me, when you have time. Like, I'm not asking you for a number right now either. Like, go think about it. Because if you throw out a number now, you might regret that it's too low. And like, you're going to do more work and you want to get paid more money. But that just like, that sentiment is so important. Like, if you're going to continue to do freelance when you leave Hollywood life,
Yeah.
to know your worth, know your value, know how much, and then you can adjust.
Yeah.
If you ask me to take photos for you, I'm going to bring the price down. You're one of my best friends. Like, but there's a friend price and then there's this is my worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a very, yeah, we're getting into other territory, but it keeps things clean too.
Yeah.
All around and takes like bad blood or, can just, everybody feels like, I'm paying my friend Alex to record my, and he's giving me a great deal. I'm his first full length album he's ever recorded. So, I want to say it doesn't make it transactional, but it does like change the kind of like power dynamic a little bit into like flattens it a little bit. He's not giving it away for free, and I'm not taking advantage of anything. Right? There's like we agreed upon this thing, and most people understand that your time is worth something.
Right.
My partner right now is just like has one of these minds that's really great at opportunities and connections, right? And there are a lot of people like that. That's kind of why I was talking about Chat GPT, because like we might not be that person, but there are so many opportunities out there right now. One of the ideas that Linoy has had for me is like a Kickstarter for my album, and as the rewards, offering the services that are the things that I want to do, right? So like you pay $350, you pledge that for me doing a one take video, like takeaway show video of you, or $5,000 gets you a 3-day intensive digital storytelling workshop for up to 10 participants. So that could be a nonprofit that puts down, that $5,000, or a business, to get that service. Like, those kind of opportunities, like how do we like, so not only is it then getting money for me to make my album, it's also advertising all of the other things that I want to be doing out there in service and in creativity. And so like just be open and find those people if you can, or like talk to those people that like, because I'm sure we all have them in our lives, but that can see those opportunities and connections at a little bit of a different lateral way of thinking. Just like if you put these pieces together this way, and it's like, oh, I never would have seen that. I saw like domino, 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 not like this web of like a possibility to get me here, So keep your eyes and ears open for those people in your life and get their advice.
Look for the helpers.
Yeah.
As Mr. Rogers said.
And talk about what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because people want to help you. And like the more you talk about it, and that then also comes once again to that mindfulness, right? To the reflecting. We need getting true, like finding out what is it that you desire, what are your needs, but really what are your desires, getting clear on that, communicating that, sharing that, because then you'll talk to those helpers, you'll talk to those connectors, you'll talk to those people, and they'll find those opportunities for you and they'll send them your way.
Right. Yeah. That's such great advice. Okay, so we're back because as we were just chatting off mic, we're on mic still, but just off recording. Kyle was like, oh yeah, I do marketing for a venue. Tell me about it. So honestly, like, I love this conversation because I think that what it's going to be about more so than like leaving the film industry. I think it's more about knowing your worth, mental health is important, and the cues that your body gives you to like slow down and move forward. But we live in, a capitalist society. We got to make money.
I think one thing that I'm realizing too, especially as a freelance musician, I do make some money playing music too, and I'm working on, I've got a gig 2 nights I put together in Redmond and Bend, Oregon, one at a wine bar, one at a brewery. Playing music is another way. I think I am also a Gemini moon.
I love this so much.
I want both things all the time. I feel like I want stability and consistency and a solid paycheck, and I want freedom. And so right now I'm in a freedom phase. It seems like every 2.5 years I kind of bounce between the freelance versus the like full time. I think there's an opportunity to cobble's not the right word, but curate maybe a job load, a workload from multiple sources that also is like not super stressful. A good friend of mine a couple of years ago, I was living in White Salmon, Washington. North of White Salmon is Mount Adams. At the base of Mount Adams is Trout Lake, Washington. And there's this cool old hall up there that I had gone to and played an open mic at. Well, when I was living in Hood River this last year, I heard that they are opening it up again. And so there was new ownership. And my friend Lindsay, I don't know if you ever met Lindsay Reeds, Lindsay Feathers. Remember, we went to
Yeah.
show up above at that festival.
Yes.
So she was doing the booking. So I got lunch with her and she's like, when we can, I'd love to bring you on for social media. And so I kind of like thought, oh, that's gone now. But then last July, they called and they were ready to bring me on. And so now, I get paid twice a month. I'm doing regular work, which looks like scheduling posts, doing announces and on sales, ditch posts, which is like between the your highest sales come at the announce and at the week of the show, and then we try to boost it along. And what's really cool for me in that is I'm transitioning into the music also. And so this seemed like I've thought about maybe I want to run a venue someday. So I was able to get into the venue side of things, doing marketing. There's that energetic exchange that happens, even if it's not monetarily, but there is also the consistency coming in. So it's really nice to have that one. That's my consistent gig, right? I do that work every week and I get paid every 2 weeks. And that has been really helpful in just having that kind of like sustaining baseline to then also bring in the freelance stuff. To finish a thought too, it's also giving me that inside look into another side of the music industry, which is invaluable as a musician. I get to see all the deals that all the artists are getting. So I'm knowing what that's what it looks like. That's what people are getting paid at certain size. That band, Blind Pilot is playing August 17th. That's the deal they're getting. There's tickets are selling, who's selling. It's just a lot of cool information for someone that maybe want to run a venue, or maybe it's like, now I know I don't want to run a venue because that's just running a bar with an extra headache or, whatever it is. But it's, so it's a cool way, low pressure, utilizing skill sets that I already have to also learn about a new possible pathway, and I'm interested in booking. So maybe there might be some opportunity to start. And I have been actually putting together songwriter rounds there for the last year. Every quarter, songwriter round is like 3 artists share the stage and they each take a turn playing a song and telling a story about it. And you do that for a number of rounds. So I've got to curate those. And it's giving me those opportunities. But I'm also trying to upscale because as an artist, we talked about that energetic exchange, right? And like as an artist, I want to do what I can for the artists to show that like we're really putting in the work here. We're really trying to like do right by everybody. We want the artist to have a good time. We want the audience to have a good time. And we're in a challenging location because we're 40 minutes off of a major highway, kind of in a rural area already. It's like the rural area to the rural area. It's exciting to get to like find opportunities to dip your toes in the water that you can also still like make a little bit of money. And I like doing marketing for this venue and getting to learn about that aspect of it, which can feed into me as a musician, knowing what I could be asking for, how I could be valuing myself, what other people like me are getting, and stuff. Getting paid to learn is great.
That's awesome. All right. Now, for real, thank you, Kyle Glenn, for being on the Company Move podcast. It's been a really great conversation. Really good catching up with you.
Yeah, likewise.
Love you, man.
Love you too.
And now for a special treat. Here is Kyle Glenn with his new EP, parking lot.
Well, I crept inside my head last night to see what I could find. Little did I know there was trouble on my mind. I woke up to a ransom note written by the blind. And if I send off some cash, I can buy myself some time. I'm driving round in circles, looking for a spot, carving my name across the dirt in this eternal parking lot. Well, I keep it to the left lane, 'cause I'm just passing through. As the wave moves to the shore, I'll make my way to you. Ain't got much time for wondering. The sun may shine and snow may blow. When I stick my feet out in the morning time, I'll know. I'm driving round in circles, looking for a spot, carving my name across the dirt in this eternal parking lot. Crossing the state line, don't bother to change the clock. I can hear the Lord in all this honky tonk. Hope is a point in space, and the night's a box of stars. These long straight roads got me wondering where you are. I'm driving round in circles, looking for a spot, carving my name across the dirt in this eternal parking lot.
Company Move is produced by me, Rennie Pollock, and is produced and edited by Robin Lavecchio. Thanks to Selena Persiani for designing our graphics. Our theme music was written by Cliff Beach and performed by Cliff Beach and Alex Nestor. You can follow Cliff on Spotify. Our interstitial music was composed and performed by Gabe Rosen. A special thank you to Keaton Susky for naming our podcast. Have questions, suggestions, or want to be a guest? Write us at companymovepod@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at companymovepod. Please follow and rate us on whatever platform you listen to us on. That's a wrap for this week, y'all. Thanks for listening. Come on back next week for a new episode of the Company Move podcast.